Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar, The Future of MSP Security, Embracing XDR Solutions. My name is Erin Haynes, and I run the marketing for Samurai XDR at NTT Security Holdings. And today's webinar is hosted by Paul Asdagi, the Senior Director of Product Management for Samurai XDR. This webinar will be around 30 to 40 minutes, and we will have a Q&A session to answer any questions you may have. Please feel free to type your messages into the chat throughout the webinar, and we will answer them at the end. We need to let you know that this webinar is being recorded, and with all that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Paul.
Thanks, Erin. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Today, we're going to cover the introduction to XDR, the current threat landscape, associated benefits of XDR for you MSPs or MSPs, and some key points to consider when implementing and or adopting XDR. And at the end of the session, as Erin mentioned, there'll also be a Q&A. So let's get into it. Let's discuss some of the drivers that have created the need for products like XDR. Whether you're an analyst or providing IT support for cybersecurity, there is no doubt that the amount of information that you're receiving is overwhelming. With the increasing threat landscape, we've seen more and more security controls being implemented. This, of course, helps us manage risk, but these controls create more and more alerts, which is both good and bad. This describes the analogy, which I know you've all heard, the needle in the haystack. And clearly we want to find that needle, but now we have multiple haystacks to look into and multiple needles. So there's no doubt in an analyst jobs, it's actually getting harder. The nearly 50% of analysts interviewed said they were unable to keep up. And then there's 52% of organizations that feel SecOps is also getting harder. And these are just a few of the reasons why industry analysts predict the emergence of and the prevalence of XDR. This also presents a real opportunity for MSPs. So what is XDR now that you hear that you need one, and why is it important for MSPs? If you thought, as an MSP, why would I be a target? Think again. As you can see, the stats show a staggering 73% of MSPs experienced a cyber attack or a breach, just under 3/4 of our survey. If you are a mid-market MSP, these may be your clients. And add to this, 82% were made up of ransomware attacks. As we all know, ransomware is mostly indiscriminate, but the recovery is costly at $3 million on average. To me, it's no surprise that only 17% of SMBs have cyber insurance. And as an SMB, you're probably more concerned about keeping your business afloat and less about the insurance and the premiums that you have to pay. And while cyber insurance may help you get back on your feet, it only helps you once you become the victim. Shouldn't we be trying to create more cyber threat resilience so that the insurance is a nice to have? And if you do get that funding for cyber, would you rather spend it on increasing the awareness, education, patching, and monitoring? I know I would. Okay, well, let's recap on where we live today. Our current threat landscape, and after this, there's no more stats, I promise. That was 2 slides of stats. IT and OT, IoT and OT are in our everyday lives, no doubt. Our homes and every facet of industry from retail to manufacturing. And these devices, in many cases, lack the strong security that is expected today. Remote work is here to stay. It's created a fantastic way of being productive. It also comes with some risks, probably a lot of risks. We have new threat vectors where traditional moat and castle security controls don't help. I'm talking about cloud in this case. It's dynamic, cost-effective, and very pervasive, and it's allowed us to work in many different ways. Cloud has also driven new technologies to help with reducing risks, such as Zero Trust, CASB, SASE, CSPM, CNAP, ASM, and more. I think I heard of a new one the other day, which I should know about, which was Cloud Threat Response, CDR, Cloud Detection Response. Anyway, we've seen threat actors targeting these supply chains as well, and that's a big problem. So why go after the target directly when you can compromise via a trusted third party with less security? Then you come across and target the real guy who you're after. This is a real problem, and one that affects probably MSPs more than most. I think about the one-to-many relationship in this instance. One target, you as the service provider with multiple customers. And I didn't even touch on email in this threat landscape. This is a massive issue also, and one that's a prominent threat vector used by attackers today. So now on to the challenges you MSPs face. Here are a few points. I know the list could go on. MSPs have the responsibility to address their clients' IT, and more critically now, their cybersecurity needs. Cybersecurity is, without question, a board-level discussion. MSPs will and need to be brought into these discussions, of course. MSPs need to deliver outcomes and delight clients, such that the possibility of churn is low, hence reaching that point of profitability. And turnover is costly, not to mention the actual effort to acquire new clients. And MSPs have the same issues with skills, hiring, training, and retaining. That's a big one, retaining those key assets in your business. There is a shortage of skills in our industry, and MSPs need to provide that enticement for those who are looking. MSPs need to be vigilant all the time. Hackers can try and fail many times before being successful. And it only takes one successful attack to affect a business. MSPs need to be able to also provide that 24/7 protection. They may need to deliver their services using a complex set of tools, which is both costly and inefficient. Imagine a customer or a client. I can't imagine a client or a customer environment all looking the same, and hence the reason why we see lots of different tool sets to tackle these problems. This complexity has an impact on cost and effectiveness, of course. And lastly, there is ransomware. This is one of those threats that MSPs hope their clients don't get targeted with. In a recent press conference, and this is an Australian reference, the Australian Minister for Home Affairs and Cybersecurity, Claire O'Neill, openly discussed the impact of these ransomware payments extending beyond national borders. And so I'm talking to an international crowd here. And this is prompting a shift in government policies globally. This trend, she believes, is driving governments to reevaluate the acceptance of ransomware payments as a norm. And this emerging new norm will definitely impact MSPs worldwide. Claire goes on to say, while the ban on ransomware payments may take a few years to be adopted, the onus is on MSPs to guide their clients towards a more secure future, fostering resilience against cyber threats. Okay, so now let's move on to XDR. And here's a definition of XDR. There are a few, but this one is mostly shorter than others and mostly to the point. XDRs unify your security tools into a more integrated approach. They combine security log data with external contextual information in a data analytics platform. This provides common detection, response, and remediation capabilities. Some of the key attributes of XDR include centralization of normalized data, normally stored in a data lake, and the vendor's integration ecosystem. This is where all the telemetry from these integrations provide the source used to provide detections. There's correlation of security data and alerts forming the incidents or cases where the user can manage threats or perform hunting using tools that are integrated into XDR. And then there is the centralized incident response capability. This key feature can change the state of individual security products as part of an incident response. Worth mentioning, it does this with the same or other integrations in the XDR ecosystem. And now Gartner has a view on this too, as do many analysts. In terms of these capabilities and the next level down, Gartner has helped customers progress this journey based on a simple maturity model. We all know XDR can be complex, but you don't need to think of it as a technology that is an all or nothing. You can adopt it at your own pace. And here you can see three maturity levels. I would say the most important part to get right is the data integration. Without this, you have no data. And without data, there is no threat detection, which is part of XDR. We have a bias on XDR being open or agnostic, which means that XDR supports the telemetry from all vendor technologies, not just its own, for example, EDR. This approach gives you as a user or an MSP the greatest opportunity to provide the maximum value via many and varied sources of information. Then you bring all that telemetry in from multiple sources, including alerts from SIEM, and then you apply your AI and ML, threat detection, alert prioritization, and of course, incident response. And the beauty of XDR is you don't need to buy more technology as it's integrated into the platform. For example, running an IR, an incident response, will leverage the workflow in the XDR app. Then moving up to level 2, maturity, you can leverage automated response, which is the R in XDR response, using a cut down version of SOAR. Again, this is all integrated into XDR. All the features I've mentioned in level 1 should be included in your chosen partner's XDR. At level 3, further to the right, these are more nice to haves. They may be add-on tools to your XDR or standalone yet integrated in some way. And that's the beauty of XDR. Via integrations, typically API integrations, you can leverage additional telemetry or actions. You can receive or send signals to those tool sets of yours, like lock an account via your identity management integration when you see risky events in your XDR dashboard. So if you're an MSP, it's perfectly reasonable to start at level 1 to support your customers, reduce churn, incremental value, all that good stuff, and then progress to level 2 and level 3 as and when you require. And don't take it from me. I hope you don't, not take everything as gospel. MSP Alliance also believes that XDR in 2024 is of importance, suggesting that you need to upgrade your tool belt to XDR. I think they make mention of antivirus and firewall technologies, which is great. XDR will include those into as another integration or telemetry source. Now let's get on to talking about some of the benefits that XDR brings to MSPs. While I won't read through this whole list, the slides will be made available after the session. So here are a few top ones for me. Unified security. XDRs bring in multiple tools into that single platform. which we talked about the complexity of lots of tools in the MSP space. Improved threat detection, combining the signals from many and varied sources, coming together to make possibly weaker signals stronger. There was an example I've used previously, which was a recent hack on Cisco switches. And the Cisco switches were being used as a leverage point for a vulnerability. Who would have thought back in the day to monitor Cisco switches? We typically look at the key assets for monitoring, such as firewalls and proxies, but there is value in monitoring other assets around your environment, especially if that happens to be the foothold of a vulnerability being exploited in your environment. So monitor everything and everything. XDR is scalable and is expected from the cloud. The more data you add, don't think of it as a forklift like you need, like for a new virtual machine. Capacity will scale on demand. This is a real benefit. I remember days when building SIEM architectures and running out of disk space and allocation of memory, so on. Cloud handles this in spades. You get enhanced visibility all over your customers' estates with these multi-tenant features as well. You'll be able to identify trends and place controls in place that apply to those affected or may be affected. Then there's the automation. This helps reduce those repetitive tasks. This is the R in XDR, as I mentioned. It's okay if you want to interact or respond interactively, but if you can create a playbook or respond to a common threat or task, this will save you time, and that means money, and improve your time to respond for your client. And lastly but not least, faster time to value. With XDR, you can onboard new clients, add additional telemetry sources in a few simple steps. XDR solves that 1 to 2 month onboarding nightmare that I know I've seen in the past, and you probably have lived it yourselves. So as mentioned, these are just a few benefits. Now let's look at implementing XDR as an MSP. So how should you implement XDR as an MSP? Well, implementing XDR should not be major surgery for your business, that's for sure. As mentioned earlier, you can take a phased approach, levels 1 through to 3. Start at 1. Here are a few points to consider though. Does the XDR support the telemetry in your customer base? If not, do they have a process to add these sources, e.g. Cisco switch? I won't labor on that too much more. Can it work with your current tool sets? For example, help desk, ticketing, and SIEM. There's probably a lot of SIEM out there. Can you integrate with SIEM? This applies to any managed service. Always discuss with your clients their risk profile or appetite and what is most important to them. How do they make money, and how can you protect that process or asset? XDR has the possibility to monitor from the network, including cloud, definitely cloud, to the edge, which is more when it comes to telemetry. But start with the important ones like endpoint, identity, email. These are your major attack vectors. Does the XDR support collaboration? This is something we are seeing more and more in managed services. Clients want to be part of the process. Whether it's chat or allowing access to see alerts, your XDR should facilitate that closer working bi-directional flow of information. And before you choose a partner, ask about their program. What are the financial incentives or rewards? And will training be provided, for example? Now a little on NTT, threat intelligence, and Samurai XDR. Most cybersecurity practitioners know the benefits of threat intelligence and how to access it. This includes both open source and commercial sources. Your open source is free and it does contain great content, but also maybe some content that should be used carefully or not taken as gospel, in that it may require further validation. Commercial sources will be of higher credibility accuracy, but with a large price tag. Probably not in reach for many SMBs out there today. Then there is the restricted information sharing groups. These have high fidelity or efficacy, but are mainly accessible through a give to get model. If you don't have something unique to offer, it's likely you won't get access to this information. We are fortunate enough to be part of these groups in NTT. Then there is what only we in NTT have access to. That is threat intelligence developed from our clients and our Tier 1 global internet backbone we call GIN. With GIN, we have 40% coverage of the internet. This vast amount of data, which is over 10 terabytes a day, is analysed continuously to develop some unique indicators not seen by any other vendor or company. This alone, we believe, is a real differentiator to our platform. We don't sell our threat intelligence, but there is good news. We do provide it as part of our platform in Samurai XDR. And all of this goodness comes together to provide, as I mentioned, platform called Samurai. From our global SOCs, threat intelligence, and collaboration with our TI partners, our clients, the tier 1 backbone, then into our machine learning and AI, providing the results back into Samurai XDR for you, the customer. So finally, why should you care? We've been doing this for over 20 years, and now we're making this, our capabilities, available via Samurai XDR to you. We understand the cost pressures in business today and have created this price point that is very affordable. With our broad support for vendor technologies and unique position for providing enterprise-grade threat intelligence, we believe Samurai can provide a unique value to your business. So you may probably asking, is there a partner program? Well, yes, there is a program. It's available today. Please check it out. There's a link on our website. Sign up to receive more information. And with that, thanks for your time today, and back over to you, Erin.
Thank you very much, Paul. All right, so everyone, up next, I just wanted to point out that we have another webinar coming out on July 30th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. It's identity management in the physical and digital worlds. And also, if you're interested in a free trial, please go to our website, samurai.security.ntt, to sign up for that free trial. And we're going to go over to some questions now, so feel free to type them into our chat, our Q&A there, and we'll get those answered for you. All right, so Paul, it looks like we have our first question. Let me move. Do we need to set up different accounts for each of our clients?
In short, yes. There'll be clients set up which are, we have from the MSP perspective, there's going to be a different client establishment. Would allow you to add further clients to your estate once you become a MSP. But yes, you will initially grant access to those clients and add the integrations. That'll give you that king's view of all of the clients that are under your management as an MSP. You know, keep the data separated through segmentation, obviously, and isolation, but allow you to pivot into each of those instances. Once they're set up, you could allow customers add the integrations, but you probably want to manage that yourself. It'll probably speed up things as well. If you're an MSP, you're probably managing their IT as well, or providing some parts of their IT. It's a really simple process. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
And there's another one here. What are the cost implications of implementing XDR for clients?
Yeah, there's a few cost implications. I think one of the major ones, I think I pointed this out earlier in the slides in this presentation, is onboarding. I remember onboarding being a massive task back in the day. And that is still a cost implication for clients. As, adding integrations was typically hard, but these days it's a lot easier. With that sort of point and click wizard approach. The other cost implication is, and it depends on the consumption model of your chosen vendor as well. Typically, more volume equals a higher cost, but obviously there are compensations in place for that, as in volume-based discount pricing. But there's the cost to the client doesn't mean, can be transferred in many ways. So there's a few costs, but on the upside in terms of cost, as in low cost, you don't need all this retooling because you're actually, including all of those tools into the ecosystem, leveraging what you already have instead of buying new ones. Like, you don't need to go out and buy a new SOAR, for example. XDR comes with a cut down version of SOAR. Same with incident response workflows and so on. So cost implications for the MSP are lower. For the clients, it should be beneficial, actually, because you're passing on some of that low cost benefit.
Okay.
Thanks.
Here's another one, Paul. What are the primary benefits and unique selling points for marketing Samurai to our clients?
I would say, without question, our threat intelligence is a big differentiator because we've been doing it for so long, and we've invested so much money in R&D in this space. Not to mention that driving our threat detection capabilities, of course, through that threat intelligence community. I think that's a primary benefit, and that's what I would be leveraging in terms of, if I was talking to customers around Samurai. The second part of the benefit is the price competitiveness in the market. We believe that the pricing that we've set and is available, people can see it on the internet, on our website, is very competitive. And then again, as MSPs, there are volume-based discount pricing structures in place to even further pass on those benefits to the customers or the clients. Yeah.
And then, do you provide support when implementing for ourselves or customers?
Yeah, without question, yes. Support is provided with the product. It's not an add-on cost. You don't have to buy premium support for us to support you as the MSP. Just a point of note, as an MSP, you're providing services to your client, your customer. It's incumbent on us to provide you support as our partner so that you're enabled and equipped to provide that support directly to your customer. So we will support you through that partnership.
Okay. There's one more here. How often is Samurai being updated?
Quick answer, constantly. But the longer answer is we implement an SDLC, which is an agile approach, constant upgrades or updates. We have major and minor releases, majors being less frequent and minors constant. The constant update, which is important to mention, is our underlying threat detections and our threat intelligence. That information that I mentioned before and that framework of our Samurai threat intelligence is constantly feeding updates to the platform, and without sort of, which I think people would know on this call, threat intelligence is something that has a degradation over time. So having that updated and fresh is really important for its efficacy and accuracy. So we do that real time.
Great. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Looks like that's all the questions. Unless anybody has any others, feel free to type them in. And if not, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Paul. Great job. That was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining as well. Really appreciate it.
Yep. And we'll be following up with everyone and sending out this slide deck when this webinar is complete. So thank you again.